not to get too far in the weeds again, but like it's like they're funding alternative parties to try to maybe split the vote, in terms of the alternatives.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. The funniest thing, so you're talking about, like, to be specific, the Derek Sloan party is a party that was set up just to make it look like the right-leaning options were divided, and to kind of, not kind of, it was a deliberate attempt to reduce our presence, because he presented, after ignoring me for a meeting and ignoring the opportunity to work together, which I knew he was going to do, because he did this to me in the federal leadership in 2020 when we were in that leadership with O'Toole. His team was in that race, and they got him in the race to make sure that the supporters and the donors that signed up for my leadership race didn't leave the Conservative Party of Canada, and didn't leave that leadership when they were going to kick me out, because Aaron O'Toole needed Derek Sloan's second place votes to beat Peter MacKay. And Aaron O'Toole's the one that got me disqualified. And the way to keep my voters in the race to help Aaron O'Toole beat Peter MacKay was to get a stalking horse like Derek Sloan there, who came out of nowhere and copied everything I said. Everything was like basically a ripoff of my platform. And that's because his advisors are dirtbags in the back that I used to work with. And they fooled me for a long time, pretending like they were my friends, but they were just there using my volunteer work and my abilities. And it took me a long time to figure it out, because I was young and dumb. But you lose enough hair and you get older, and you realize who your friends are. So Derek Sloan came back at the end, right before the 2022 election, January. We were ramping up. My health was better. The pastors from Liberty Coalition, Mike Thiessen, Aaron Rock, Michael Clark, the other dirtbag, they drove into Cambridge. They had a meeting. They sat there. My first meeting out of a hospital bed, finished chemo. I was limping up the steps. They sat there and they said, "Wow, Jim, are you really like healthy to do a campaign? In other words, we thought you were dying." That was an exact quote in the meeting, was, "Are you sure you're healthy enough to do a campaign?" And the other one was, "We can't believe that you guys have riding associations set up and candidates, that many candidates already, because we thought you were sick." And then the third one was, "How do we make this party less Karahalios centric?" Pastors didn't like the idea that a party was being led by a husband and wife team. Okay, this is the best. And then they left that meeting and they went off and they plotted immediately. Never heard back from them. They plotted another party. First, they tried to get Randy Hillier to start a party. That fell apart. And then they went with Derek Sloan. And they had churches all across Ontario with pastors going into the churches and asking people to run just to be a name on a ballot. That's it. Most of their candidates did nothing, except for Tom Marazzo, who put out a video defaming me, and a couple others like that. And then after the election, when we beat them, they disappeared again. Derek Sloan, Randy Hillier, they've said nothing about Doug Ford for 2.5 years. Derek Sloan's party got deregistered because he didn't do his accounting and his audits that are required by Election Ontario, so they canceled the party. Then he got it re-registered. The way he got it re-registered is there's two ways to get a party re-registered. You need to get 1,000 signatures to re-register the party, and he was trying to do that and he couldn't get them. Or you run two candidates in an election at the same time. Okay, so where's there an election in between generals to get re-registered? Doug Ford called two by-elections at the same time. When the second by-election, it was the Milton by-election in Lambton, Kent, Middlesex, he didn't have to call the second one for 4 more months. But he decided to call them together so that Derek Sloan could re-register the Ontario party. The mainstream media will never report this, but I know that's why they did it. Because you would never run to like a by-election on another riding within 3 or 4 weeks of the MPP resigning, which is what he did. And Derek Sloan got re-registered with his party. And then even though that party got re-registered, he did nothing. For a year, he said nothing about provincial politics until they found out that we were saying we had over 60 candidates already signed up for this election. And we were adding more and more. And then just last week, they said, we're getting in the game. We're starting a party. It's Marazzo, it's Sloan, it's Randy Hillier, the dirtbags of Ontario politics, who say they have these great values and they're just there to cause obstacles and suppress the conservative opposition to the mainstream conservative parties. And they're scrambling, and they're going to get some candidates together, and then I'm sure Rebel's going to cover them, and True North's going to cover them. And it's a tough battle, right? Because it's hard enough fighting against the establishment parties as it is. And then you've got these yo-yos on the side who've got nothing better to do but to go on social media and attack me and defame me and whisper campaigns and say terrible things about me. I haven't mentioned these guys in 2.5 years. And they're out there on social media crapping all over me. So they'll sign people up because they've got connections throughout the province through the PC infrastructure. And the PC infrastructure are churches in every community and other local campaign activists. Funny enough, though, Marazzo and Hillier aren't even going to run. So Marazzo and Hillier are out there telling everyone else to run, but they're not going to run themselves. So they just want you to sacrifice yourself, go on a ballot. Our riding president's my wife, Belinda. She should be the leader of our party. But she's a young mom who doesn't want to be the leader. And as her husband, the leader always gets blamed for everything when you're running a political party. So candidates that leave and they're discouraged, it's Jim's fault, right? So I don't think my wife needs that. But she's the president of the party. And she's a former MPP. And she's running again, because that's what you do when you start a political party. Tom Marazzo, though, he's too good for that. He's not running. Randy Hillier, he's too good for that. He's not running. They're just there to send out emails and tell people to run against Jim Belinda.